This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. We tell you what you need to know, follow up on context, and try to help each other understand.
Today, it is all about Google I/O.
Almost entirely. Not quite entirely, but almost entirely. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Jenn Cutter.
Let's start with what you need to know from Google I/O. First of all, they promised every reporter this was going to be an hour long. It was 2 hours long. No one believed it wasn't going to be 2 hours long, but I thought it was hilarious to see all the reporters like, this is definitely going over the promised hour. Lots of stuff to get through here, mostly about AI, mostly about Gemini and how Gemini is going to be in everything and going to be in search. But let's start with the one piece of hardware they talked about, which is Android XR devices, XR being extended reality. So these are their Apple Vision Pro, their Meta Ray-Ban glasses style products. The second official Android XR device after Samsung Project Muhan, which by the way, they promised is going to be available later this year. But the second device called Project Aura, AURA, is a pair of lightweight see-through tethered glasses powered by a Qualcomm Snapdragon processor made by XReal. So these are a step down from Project Muhan, which is more like an Apple Vision Pro. They also announced that they are going to make smart glasses with Samsung that are more like the Meta Ray-Bans, and they are partnering, very wisely, I believe, with Gentle Monster and Warby Parker on the design of those glasses. Those glasses will have a camera, they'll have a microphone, they'll have speakers. That's just like Meta's glasses, but they'll also have an optional display to view notifications, which will be attached to the lens, which is a little bit more like the old Google glasses that we used to know way back in the day. Jen, what do you think?
I don't hate the new glasses. I'm very shocked. I am generally the anti-smart glasses person, but these, like, lightweight is the best way to put them. They looked really smooth. The demo they did it felt real. It felt functional. It felt like something that I would theoretically use if I had infinite money and data.
Yeah, we'll see how they work in reality, but we can't really know anything about that at this point. However, I will say, extremely smart. When Meta's with Ray-Bans are good looking. People like Ray-Bans. To go Gentle Monster, little step up from a Ray-Ban, and Warby Parker, little step down, but still very stylish and affordable, kind of hems them in on both sides stylistically. Google also changed its subscription options. This is essential to understanding all of the rest of their products, and they put it at the end of their announcement. It was very confusing, but AI Premium is now called AI Pro, still $20 a month, still gets you higher rate limits than the free plans, and now bundles in 2 terabytes of storage, Gemini 2.5 Pro access, as well as deep research and VO2 video generation. There's a new plan, though, that's $250 a month. That's more expensive than the OpenAI one that's $200 a month. This one's called AI Ultra, has your highest rate limits, of course, adds access to agents, the Project Mariner stuff we'll talk about. YouTube Premium gets thrown in there. That's kind of nice if you're paying that much. 30 terabytes of cloud storage, and also access to upcoming projects. So 2.5 Pro DeepThink, not yet available, but you'll get it first. VO3, you'll get it first in the Gemini app if you're a subscriber here. What do you think of these plans?
The money was staggering. I was like, yeah, better include YouTube Premium. You should come over and do my dishes for that kind of money.
Yeah, right. Like, kind of smart to add YouTube Premium, but man, that is a lot of money, and you are going to have a lot of uses for this, which OpenAI has shown people will pay $200 a month for this. So when you plug in all of the Google stuff that you already have, maybe there's going to be enough people paying for this as well. Google Meet is getting real-time English to Spanish and Spanish to English translation. More languages rolling out in the coming weeks. You'll need to be on the Pro or the Ultra plan to get that. That's kind of cool. And then they talked about Google Beam, a video conference platform with 6 cameras that capture you. You don't have to wear anything, but it'll create a 3D model of you in real time. So near perfect head tracking, down to the millimeter, 60 frames per second, can also do real-time speech translation. So they demoed two people speaking different languages, talking to each other. Early customers are going to get it later this year. HP is making the first Google Beam device, and they will announce more on that at Infocom, an audiovisual technology exhibition, in June. First Beam devices will be available to early adopters. Turns out that seems like Deloitte, Salesforce, Citadel, NEC, and Duolingo. So if you work at one of those companies, you'll be able to try this out. And it will integrate with Google Meet, of course, but also other platforms. You'll be able to use Zoom. They name-checked them.
Yeah. I'm always fascinated by this kind of extremely niche hardware. It's very interesting. It's very cool. The demo was beautiful. What is the wider use case here? Like, I remember the Microsoft Surface table was like, this is really cool. Who is this for?
This is the bet. Yeah. The bet is that companies are going to want to buy this, like Deloitte, Salesforce, et cetera, and put it in their conference rooms, I guess.
Yeah, and like for all these giant companies pushing return to office, it's like, well, this feels like it's going in the opposite direction.
Yeah, but Salesforce is an example of a company that hasn't done return to office. So I guess Google says, well, there's enough that aren't doing it. The other ones always make the headlines, but we'll sell to the rest of them. We're getting personalized smart replies in Gmail. This will, with your permission, find info about you in Gmail and then compose a reply in your voice based on what it knows about how you reply. They made a joke that Sundar apparently always uses the word exciting, and his personalized reply used the word exciting. This is coming to subscribers in Gmail later this summer. The smart replies will be available in English at first, but then moving on to other languages. And they will be available if you're using Gmail on the web, in iOS and Android, launching in alpha in Google Labs in July. So you're going to have to opt in July, but it'll eventually come to everybody. Also eventually coming to Search, Docs, and Gemini. And that's one of the ways it gets even better, is if it can look at your Google Docs and then it can know more about you, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, for people who run their whole life through the Google Cloud services, I'm very curious to see how accurate the fake you it kind of creates to do the you thing.
Yeah, I'm less concerned with the tone, to be honest, and maybe that's because I do so much writing, but the idea of being able to say, hey, I need to send Ibbot and Bobby an email about the event space at TMS Vegas, and then have it go and find the plaza reservation and pull all that together so I don't have to do it, that's going to save me some time.
Yeah, I like the idea of basically AI trained on you and being able to pull up the historical stuff. I would love to know what I did in 2011 without having to go physically search with end operators. Yeah, when you reconnect after a long time, I was like, what was that meeting we had? What was that email we had? That kind of stuff can be useful. The VO3 video generator is available now, and this one has native audio generation. So it can do background sounds, it can do sound effects, it can do dialogue. They showed an old sailor speaking with it. That one is available now if you're an Ultra subscriber. VO can also now use reference video to stay consistent. It has camera controls. And they even have an update for VO2, the older, more widely accessible one. It includes the ability for users to add or remove objects from videos via text prompt, like, take that apple out of the background or whatever. Also, along with this, Imagen 4 can now do words well, they say. It'll spell things right. It's also 10 times faster than the previous image generator. And Google opened its Lyria 2 music generation model to creators through its YouTube Shorts platform and businesses using Vertex AI. This can create music. They showed a musician using it to help them create music. It's not meant to replace the musician. And the model, Lyria Realtime, is now in Google's Gemini API and AI Studio platform. I mention all these together because they all come together, VO, Imagen, and Gemini, in Flow, which is a text-to-video prompt generator combining all of these things. So you can share a few images to Flow, give a prompt, and it'll be able to create still images, animate them, add videos, whatever you want it to do, as well as add music to it. Flow is launching today in the US for people who subscribe to Pro or Ultra plans. So this is a new tool to kind of combine all these three things together if you're using all three a lot. Yeah. I obviously have to focus on the YouTube part of this. So for people who subscribe and use it on Shorts, this saves you, well, not saves you because you're paying a lot of money, but now you will not theoretically need any kind of music licensing service because you can make your own custom. And I wonder how they'll let you port that, say, to other platforms that you may use, or what the rights are in terms of who owns what.
Yeah. And with YouTube Shorts, you can fall under the YouTube Music license, but you face monetization issues and stuff like that. And you don't have to worry about that. You can animate backgrounds. You can change things. You could do some light editing. You're like, I just want to remove these things in the background, all of that kind of stuff. It's really interesting. A couple of projects are now real. Project Astra is now Gemini Live. This is coming to Android and iOS users now. The Live API is a developer-facing endpoint that allows low-latency voice interactions with Gemini. Basically, Live, if you don't know, is the one where you can point it at things and say, what is that? You can ask it to look at your screen and explain what's going on. And starting Tuesday, developers can build experiences that support audio and visual input and native audio output in their apps using Gemini Live. And then the other project, Mariner, is their agent. Computer use capability coming to the Gemini API, available broadly this summer. Mariner can now oversee up to 10 simultaneous tasks, so it can use a virtual server instead of having to use your browser. So you can tell it to do something and walk away and not have to monitor it. You can show it a task once, and it will learn it for future cases. The Gemini SDK is compatible with Model Context Protocol, MCP tools that we talked about earlier this week. This will come first to US Ultra subscriber. And if you're wondering, like, who else does stuff like this? Agents are all over the place. Compare it to OpenAI's Operator, Amazon's Nova Act, or Anthropic's Computer Use. And then there's also Agent Mode, which is similar to this. It combines web browsing with research features and integrations, as well as with your other Google apps, more along the way. But you can tell it, hey, yeah, use my Google Docs, etc. Google says Ultra subscribers get access to Agent Mode on the desktop soon.
If you did a push-up every time you heard agent or agentic in this presentation, you would be so ripped right now.
Yeah. So those are things we already heard them talk about that are now live. It's sort of like not just a project shipping. Search, they really tried to make the case that like search is increasing. More people are benefiting from search. Search isn't dying. AI is making search more useful and helping people who want to get to searchers. AI overviews in search is used more often. 10% growth in queries that show AI overviews. Google Lens queries up 65%. And AI mode is now launching as a tab for all US users. You may have it if you opted into the experiment, but now everybody in the US gets it. AI mode will power AI overviews as well, and that means Gemini 2.5 model coming to AI mode and AI overviews. They said over time we'll graduate many of the AI mode cutting edge features to the core search experience. But really right now what it means is AI overviews does something okay, but if you want to do longer queries, more specific queries and get more information, you'll want to go over to the AI mode tab. You can also get personalized answers if you give it permission to use what it knows about you from search. And coming this summer, other apps that you authorize. Deep search is coming to Google Search AI mode, so you can have it do some research for you. Complex analysis and data visualization coming this summer for sports and finance. They use sports as an example, making a chart based on batting averages, using tornado bats, stuff like that. But I can imagine finance using it a lot. And those agentic features from Project Mariner come into AI mode. And Project Astra, the Gemini Live stuff, will be called Search Live, where you can actually point it at things, have it look at things, look at screens, and incorporate that in search in AI mode. Do you buy it? Do you buy it that this is going to keep search even more valuable?
They didn't talk about the one thing I was desperate to hear some movement on. I thought of an example from like 10 years ago, gaming tournament in Toronto. My friends from NorCal were like, oh man, we're going to come now. We're going to stay at this hotel and go to this restaurant. And I'm like, wait. That restaurant has non-existed since I was 16 years old. Where are you getting this information? And unless Google is also going to clean up their search results, you're getting the garbage in, garbage out problem.
Yeah. Well, and they are implying that they've cleaned up those results, that they've cleaned up hallucinations. We will see. I know the Verge commentators were making the same comment, like, how often is it going to get stuff wrong, though? That is a question. I don't think it gets stuff wrong all the time, but it does sometimes, and that will be a key to this.
Yeah, they keep talking about travel, and I'm thinking, like, if I end up in South America and I'm counting on this place to exist, I really need this place to exist.
I mean, the wise thing is to double check all this stuff. Like, yes, it'll save you time to put it all together, but then click the link, and they do give you the links to click. There is also a shopping tab that lets you try on clothing with your photo. Supposedly, the system will use a model of your own body and render how fabric would fold and drape realistically on you. Visual shopping and agentic checkout arriving in the next coming months. So you can tell it to just go buy it, and it'll go do the checkout process for you. Try on is currently available in labs. We also have a lot of Gemini 2.5 updates, more than we could possibly get to here. Native audio output, for example, can switch between whisper and normal and even switch between languages midstream, can distinguish between speaker and background voices. They are showing the chain of thought so you can see how it reasons. There are thinking budgets coming so you can control the model on its cost and latency to your budget and tastes. There's a coding agent equivalent to OpenAI's Codex called Jules in public beta at jules.google. There's a math model called Gemini Diffusion coming to Gemini 2.5. Deep Think mode in Gemini 2.5 Pro. They talked about world models that can simulate the world the way our brains do. They talked about robotics. And there were more things, some of which weren't even in the keynote, that I saw come out when the NDAs expired halfway through the keynote. Google Chrome instantly changing your compromised passwords if you wanted to, bringing Gemini to Chrome so it can answer questions about your open tabs, Google Play adding topic pages and audio previews. Stitch is a tool to help design apps. Gemma AI can run on phones. Synth ID, they talked about being a detector for watermarking things. Wear 06 with Material 3 Express design refresh, which we actually heard about last week, but there's some new stuff on that. And Notebook LM getting video overviews. So there you go, Jen. Any last thoughts on Google I.O.?
As somebody who is currently buying stuff for a wedding, the shopping thing was like, oh, we can drape fabric correctly. And I'm like, can you? That would save me a lot of issues right now. I've been learning so many new words about fabrics, and I'm like, man, this is way too much information to process.
There's a lot of can it do as promised. If it does, these things are very impressive. Well, there's so much from I.O. to wrap our heads around that tomorrow we're going to check in with Jason Howell, who is at I.O. to get his on-the-ground impressions, so don't miss tomorrow's show.
DTNS is made possible by you, the listener, thanks to Alo, Adam L., Tony Glass, Philip Less, and our new patrons. We have Sun, Joel, Grant, Cephilian, and Artem.
Woo! Man, new patrons. Love it. Thank you very much. There is some non-Google I.O. news out there today, so let's get to the briefs.
Chosun Biz and Bloomberg sources say that Nintendo will have Samsung make some of the main chips needed for the Nintendo Switch 2. The chip is a customized NVIDIA processor that Samsung will make on its 8-nanometer process. TSMC made the chipset for the original Switch, but the source told Bloomberg this design was optimized for Samsung's manufacturing systems. Samsung has made NAND flash memory for Nintendo in the past, and if true, this could help Nintendo make enough Switch 2s to pass the 15 million units it projected to ship by March of next year. Samsung does not have as many demands on its capacity as TSMC does.
Now, granted, I'm still, a beginner when it comes to reading Korean, but from both the Chosun Biz and the Bloomberg articles, it looks like, if I'm reading this right, Nintendo always had Samsung making this. This isn't like a Switch where they added capacity. So I'm curious why they under projected. I don't know if maybe they just didn't have clarity into the capacity that Samsung had, or they were able to add some capacity. But it is interesting, and people are going to grab onto this if the Switch 2 starts to have problems that the original Switch did not.
Yeah, people are looking for targets, but
Yep.
Nintendo, being as generally conservative as it is, was probably smart to keep this real quiet and then spring it on people later because it doesn't affect the consumers, but obviously tech news is all over this.
Yeah, they wouldn't want people to think, oh, that's why it's messing up, because there's millions of reasons why products mess up once they go to scale, right? But they might very much want people to know, like, oh, we're gonna hit the target. We're gonna do 20 million, not 15 million. So don't worry. So I can see why they might decide to finally leak it out. Speaking of clarity, we have a little more clarity in the fight between Apple and Epic over adding Fortnite to the US App Store. Now, I had assumed that Apple was relying on the fact that Epic's US developer account had been suspended as the reason for the denial, because that suspension was upheld during the case. But U.S. District Judge Yvonne Gonzalez-Rogers' response to Epic's motion, saying, hey, you need to force Apple to let Fortnite into the U.S. store, shows otherwise. Some reports have said that Apple told Epic that it had not taken action on the U.S. submission to the App Store because it was waiting to hear the Ninth Circuit appeal of Judge Gonzalez-Rogers' order to allow third-party payment options. Now, the judge is not having it. The previous order required Apple to comply immediately, and it has done so. One of the most recent examples is that Apple just approved an update to the Spotify app that lets users in the US see audiobook pricing in the app and then link out to buy books in the browser. So Apple is complying with this in most cases. And the judge seems to say in her response to Epic's filing that Apple doesn't get to select which companies it complies with. It can't just be mad at Epic and not let it into the App Store. Doesn't matter if their developer account was previously suspended. Epic has a valid EU account through which it submitted Fortnite. And the judge doesn't mince words, writing, Apple is fully capable of resolving this issue without further briefing or a hearing. And then adds, this is the part that got a lot of people's attention, that if the court does need to get involved, and then the hearings were scheduled in case they need to happen, Judge Gonzalez-Rogers writes, the Apple official who is personally responsible for ensuring compliance shall personally appear at the hearing. And a lot of people think that the reason you do that is you want to hold them in contempt personally for noncompliance.
You have to love a good legal, don't make me come over there.
It really is, right? It is like, y'all can work this out. Do not make me do this. I will see you in my office, or my courtroom in this case, if you do that. Like, I really was I was expecting that the judge might go, well, I don't like it, but Apple's right. And it turns out that I was wrong about the justification that Apple used. And the judge is like, no, you don't get to say like, well, in this case, we're waiting on the appeal. I didn't give you time to wait on an appeal. You got to comply now.
Yeah, I was trying to find another example of, okay, like who else has Apple suspended that would want to get in on this action? But there's no one more high profile than Epic. And it's even hitting gaming news in terms of like just consumer and player subreddits. People talking about this. They're like, come on, Apple, I want this back. I want this back so badly.
Yeah. And Spotify is usually the one that is getting Epic's back in this fight in the past. And Spotify is getting everything at once. So I don't know if that's Apple just knowing like, well, we'll keep Spotify happy and they won't jump in on this, but they really just need... Epic doesn't need to remove it from the non-Apple app stores. I get that there's, wanting to keep all of things consistent. So they're playing a little foul here, but Apple's really playing foul here, it looks like.
SAG-AFTRA, the U.S. actors union that represents video game voice actors, has filed a charge of unfair labor practices with the U.S. National Labor Relations Board, the NLRB, over Epic's Llama Productions' use of generative models to recreate James Earl Jones's performance of Darth Vader in Fortnite. Jones agreed to the uses before he died, and his family granted permission for the use of his voice in Fortnite. So what's the problem? Well, the union says Llama Productions did not provide notice and bargain over the terms of the use. The union contends the model replaces the work of others who have in the past provided voices for Darth Vader, even when Jones was alive. And complicating matters is the fact that voice actors have been on strike against game companies, including Llama, since July of last year. One dispute is over how generated content is handled.
Yeah, I think this is because of the strike. I think nobody really knows what the rules are until the strike is over. And so Llama was like, well, we've got the rights from the estate. We're just going to use it. And SAG-AFTRA is trying to understandably get a better negotiating tactic by saying, no, there are other people who could have done this, and you've now replaced them with AI.
Yeah, these seasons are planned in advance, and I think like Epic was just hoping that things would be rolling so they wouldn't have to adjust anything, and they decided we'll ask forgiveness instead of permission.
Yeah, especially when the contract is up, where you can say like, hey, we don't have a contract. So, yes, we're under the existing terms, but those terms are vague and maybe don't apply to the situation, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, we'll see if the NLRB weighs in on this. I'll be curious. Wall Street Journal and CB Insights have a report showing the European Union lagging behind the U.S. and China in the number of privately held technology companies valued at more than $1 billion. So this is just looking at unicorns and above. The U.S. has 90 such companies, according to this report, with a combined value of $2.53 trillion. This is privately held. This is not publicly held. So we're not talking about Apple or Google. We're talking about SpaceX in the case. China has more privately held companies valued at $1 billion, 162, but they're valued collectively at $702.46 billion. So the U.S. companies on average are valued at a lot more per company. The EU sits between the two regions in the number of companies at 107, but far below them in value at $333.38 billion. And Wall Street Journal points out only 4 of the world's top 50 tech companies are European. One of those is Stripe, which is split between the EU and the US anyway.
China's General Administration of Customs reports that exports of smartphones from mainland China dropped to the lowest level since 2011 in April, as uncertainty over U.S. tariffs disrupted supply chains worldwide. Smartphone exports fell 72%, much sharper than the overall drop of 21% between China and the U.S. during the month. Meanwhile, the value of smartphone components shipped from China to India over the past year has quadrupled.
Marshall, known for its guitar amps. When I was in high school, everybody said, oh, the Marshall stack. Marshall has launched its first sound bar. Coming for you, Sonos. The Heston 120, which supports Dolby Atmos and DTSX with 11 drivers for spatial audio, has a total power output of 150 watts and support for Bluetooth 5.3 and Wi-Fi, which means it also supports AirPlay 2, Google Cast, Spotify Connect, and Tidal Connect. And it's got nice codec support. I mean, MP3s and stuff you'd expect, but also ALAC, FLAC, OGG Vorbis, and WMA9. Has an HDMI eARC port and then a second regular HDMI 2.1 port, as well as an RCA input. Nice for your turntable, perhaps. And it looks like it comes from Marshall with a mix of leather and metal and that gold script Marshall logo. So this thing looks like a Marshall. You also have some nice amp-like knobs, physical knobs and buttons on it. Companion subwoofer is not out yet. They say it's on the way. So you're going to have to just use this for everything for the time being. The Heston 120 costs $999. You can pre-order it now. Shipping June 3rd.
My dad is absolutely looking at this.
Oh, yeah.
If they have a good app that simplifies a lot of things for older people, and the RCA input is actually important to people. That is a feature.
Yeah, I have one on my Vizio that I plug my turntable into it. That's exactly what I use it for. And yeah, the app, I didn't get a good review of the app, so I don't know how good it is, but you can do EQ and stuff in the app. So there's, it is a modern soundbar in that respect.
Yeah, all it needs to do is not brick your older stuff once they upgrade.
Yeah, right.
A couple of important release dates to note. Qualcomm said it will launch its second-generation Snapdragon 8 Elite at Summit 2025 starting September 23rd. That announcement may also include new laptop chips. And the compact OnePlus 13S phone will launch June 5th at noon India Standard Time. Finally, Apple sent out invites for its Worldwide Developers Conference taking place June 9th through the 13th.
The U.S. Take It Down Act was signed into law on Monday. That law makes it a crime to distribute non-consensual intimate images. So a new acronym coming into our vocabulary, NCII. That includes faked versions, deepfakes and the stuff. It doesn't have to be a real image to qualify under this. Social media platforms also have a takedown rule now. This is where some people have a problem with this law. Social media platforms must remove images within 48 hours of being being notified. Now, if you're a violator of the distribution of these, if you're the poster, you could receive a sentence of up to 3 years in prison for posting such images. However, it's the takedown notice that has some people criticizing the law. The Electronic Frontier Foundation and the Center for Democracy and Technology warned that the takedown provision could be abused by those looking to remove non-offending speech. So saying something is NCII, even though it's not, just to get it taken down because the social media platform doesn't want to get fined. They don't want to go afoul of this law, so they play it safe. Something you have seen abused with the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. There is no test for whether a takedown notice is legitimate or not, at least not one provided by the law itself.
Yeah, like it doesn't matter which government it is. This is trying to thread a needle that is in a haystack that is on Pluto. It's like, as much as I love the idea that all of this stuff could disappear, we know that it's going to be a bit wider than that. And like my YouTube channel where I was posting official stuff from official game companies, I had takedown notices all of the time and had to fight them all of the time. It finally slowed down over the last 5 years when I guess they got the memo, but oh no, this you will hear more about this from us and everyone.
Yeah, and even the DMCA had a better counter notice provision built into it. So I have a feeling that the first time someone falls under the like this doesn't qualify, they're just trying to stop me from posting something, it's going to go to court. EFF's going to defend somebody, and then we're going to have the courts decide where the line is, which is never optimal. You'd prefer it to be defined better in the legislation itself.
The latest dev channel builds of Windows 11 include AI actions in File Explorer. These let you right-click on a file and get access to actions like blur the background of a photo or summarizing content from a document. The first 4 actions being tested are for images, including blur, as well as erase objects, remove background, and search for similar images on the web. Similar actions for Office files will come soon for Microsoft 365 subscribers with a Copilot license.
Well, folks, what do you like to hear about us talk about on the show? Hear about us talk about what? How would you like to write my script? Please do so on our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at reddit.com/r/Daily Tech News Show.
We end every episode of DTNS with some shared wisdom. Today, RW has a reaction to Monday's show.
Yes, he wrote on Patreon, didn't DRDOS have a command line editor called Edit? We talked about Microsoft's new open source command line editor called Edit. It seemed to be a little call to the past there. Thank you for the reminder on RW. He writes, the very good times are back. And here we are at WWDC, not mentioning things. And also, he wrote novel and interesting interview segment. Really enjoyed it. Some really good software recommendations too. Thanks again to Ina Kim for talking to us about those online teaching software and websites that she uses to teach Korean. Really appreciated that.
What are you thinking about? Have you got some insight into a story and or script? Please share it with us over at feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com.
Big thanks to RW for contributing today's show. Thank you for being along for Daily Tech News Show. The show is made possible by our patrons. Thank you, patrons. Patreon.com/DTNS.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.